So yeah, as Ed said, my name's Simon Crummy. Senior, I'm going to say the senior BA at Gene Edwards, not because I have the most power, but just because I'm the oldest, so therefore I'm the senior. There are other senior ones as well, but I just managed to squeak in as being the oldest. Huh? So I thought these kinds of things, you're going to hear a lot of detail and give a lot of information about our products, services, and this kind of thing. So I thought I'd warm us up by just sort of stepping back and just giving you some reflections on my own personal experience. I started in the industry, believe it or not, in November 1989 in the London market. So I've seen a transformation occur. So I'd share some of that, observations about how the industry is automated in that time. Oh, that's, technology works, it's incredible. So I thought I'd just frame it like this, and I'll just go through some of these observations, and then subtly, no one likes surprises, so I thought I'll talk very generally, and it will seem just like that, and then it will all come together at the end and turn out to be a quite subtle sales pitch. So I didn't want that to be a surprise when we get there. That could work? Okay. So a subtitle. So back in the 90s, it really seemed, we expected this to all happen a lot quicker, and change kept coming, but it didn't happen quite as quickly as we expected. But the pace of change has now increased rapidly, and it's quite a different landscape today. So we'll look at automation as a topic. What is automation? I'm not insulting your intelligence really, but it's clearly not robot arms doing the underwriting. That's not what we're talking about. Automation is the use of machines or computers to replace something that people previously did manually. And there are different flavors of automation. Basic automation, this is just one process, one task that a person used to do is now replaced by a machine. So even a photocopier, saves someone, handwriting something out. That's quite simple, and we already have a lot of that in place. All our software that we use, these are automation. Then we have integration automation, process automation. This is much more interesting. This is where, we use software to automate a whole series of tasks, a whole workflow. And this is really where many more efficiencies can come along. And then the future is artificial intelligence, where actually not just one workflow, but multiple different processes can be automatically triggered by something a bit more intelligent. So in actual fact as well, I think it's useful to bring this term in, because automation therefore is such a big topic, from some simple one task all the way up to removing all the people and the AI, algorithms do everything. So I like this term orchestration. And this is where we actually automate a whole process or a workflow. And a lot of our tools, we're really talking about orchestration more than automation, but we'll just continue with automation because it's a bit easier, but this is really what we're talking about. So this is more just when the story of automation as I've seen it through my career. And we were told it was going to be the information revolution. Bill Gates and his visionaries, Microsoft came along, and we all thought, wow, we're all going to be in digital villages and in the next 5 years. But it didn't work out like that. It wasn't really a revolution. It turned out to be more like an evolution. And it's been a much slower process of going from a very people-based industry to a much more computer-based industry. So the old days, when I was young, better looking. So this is something like a very high-level schematic of how the London market worked when I started. Everything was document-based. Everything comes in and is processed manually by people. Lots of stationery, putting things in files and having people to manage the filing and this kind of thing. And most of the information in the organization is held on paper. And I've put sort of lost data. And I mean, in the sense that it's not useful. It's all these files. You can't interrogate that. You can't ask questions of it. And it's very hard to report off it. So it's kind of lost data in that sense. But also we had these massive filing rooms. Data literally got lost because like, oh, the box has gone missing. I don't know where that file is anymore. Oh dear, you know, that kind of thing happened quite a lot. Once a file is misfiled, you almost can never find it again. So a lot of people employed to do jobs with staplers and hole punches. And then the early days, we just may had one terminal that was sort of a very basic, simple accounting system that you could just finally book some money in, and that would feed into report. It had no information about contracts, terms, you know, no sophistication. It was just a ledger booking system, the early days. And that was a sort of picture through the 90s up to 2000. This is what Lloyd's looked like, more or less, when I started. You can see the tools of the trade here. We're a slipcase, and everything is on paper, and there were piles of paper and files everywhere. People had reference books and looked things up. And that was a typical scene when I started. No, not quite. I'm taking the mickey a little bit. This is a bit of an older picture, but I started at Willis Faber, and they actually had a typing pool. They still had a typing pool. So, you know, you needed a document, there'd be a room of ladies, you know, just being fed these documents, and they'd type. And that was one of the first things that did eventually get automated. And, you know, within 2 or 3 years, that had kind of gone, and faxes and telexes and printers and early word processors came in. So that just shows how far it's come from you know, when I started to today. So, yeah, just showing here, gradually, we just get a bit more, some you know, better ledgers, more data starts getting captured gradually. People add computers, still paper, still filing, but less of it is lost. And gradually, more of it is being captured on computers. But people could already see, you know, the Bill Gates, the utopian dream had already sort of come to pass, and they could already see, or wouldn't it be nice if data just came in, it was all kind of held in one big place, and we just reported out of it, and we could interrogate it and get all the management information we need. But unfortunately, the technology didn't really support that. The internet wasn't invented. You know, everyone had developed things in silos. They couldn't talk to each other, and you know, this was a sort of unachievable dream at the time, but people could already see it. But that's not actually what happened. So we're now in the 2000s, the 2010s. We really just keep adding more computers and removing more and more paper. People start digitizing the documents. PDFs were scanned and held in repositories. Still all document-based. Everything's coming in as documents and going out as documents, but more people are working on computers. All the people who dealt with the hole punches and the filing of those jobs are gone. Not that many women in the industry. See one lady down there. Sad to say, you know, when I started, there were hardly any. I mean, they in Lloyd's, the only women you saw were secretaries, and that's been one sign of progress. That, you know, the 20 years, gradually the number increased, and now, you know, they play a full part. You see them in management, boardroom, and the industry is a lot better because of it. So now we're sort of more or less where we are now. Still document-based, more or less. They come in on emails and PDFs, people send it electronically, but they're still documents. It's not a data feed. It's people are sending templates, and everyone has their own templates, and it still has to be interrogated by a person. What is this document? And like, oh, I need to go and find the system I need to enter this into, and, you know, pass this data around through the organization kind of manually, as it were. But it's much more sophisticated. You know, we now have connected computers, much more sophisticated software. And this is a sort of typical state from a few years ago of many of the clients we work with: Europe, North America, London, Bermuda. So MI, management information. So the key thing about collecting data is that you want to use it. You know, it's like there's no point having data unless you can interrogate it and use it to inform your decision making. You know, you want to be able to run, you know, reports and stats that say, well, what kind of losses do we get? What are the best policies that we write? What are the loss ratios? And if you can't have that at your fingertips, you know, it's not very useful. And the more that you can feed in and look at the data that you hold for insights and learning, the better your underwriting can be. You know, in the early days when I started, underwriting was a case of relationships. You would take your underwriter to the pub, try and get him drunk, and use your relationship to get him to write things. And it would be what they call gut instinct. The underwriter would just look at your slip and assess the risk and sort of think, yeah, I feel that could be profitable. I'll write it. And there wasn't modeling and a lot of criteria or guidelines. It was just down to relationships and gut feel. And then gradually, as data has become collected, the models came in, and then underwriters, you know, would have to actually justify their decisions, and the quality of underwriting improved massively, and the amount of drinking in the market went down dramatically. So this is Lloyd's more or less today. I can't barely see a sheet of paper on the screen. All we have is screens. So more or less now in the coming future, this was the landscape in the last few years, lots of different systems, some of them integrated, some people have piecemeal put in integration. They realize that this system needs to talk to this system, and to be able to report, they need to get data from these different systems that they have, and people have just independently piecemeal tried to integrate them. But still data is lost, and you know, there might be data in this system that would be useful, and you know, you could get more management if but they're not connected yet. It's not all really in one ecosystem. So the trend in the recent years for the sort of more modern clients has been to do this, which is called a like data warehouse, and this has been the sort of the trend of the last 5-10 years to try and scoop up all that data and feed it into one big database, because then it's a lot easier to interrogate for reporting, and you can sort of generate more meaningful management information, which informs your decision making and hopefully improves your underwriting and your performance. So this is what a lot of companies you see are sort of now doing as the way to solve this problem of having all these different vendor systems. They're all on different platforms and they don't really talk to each other. Oh yeah, you can't really see it, but yes. And also integrations. And this is what we've been doing, you know, is that it might be, we just sort of help integrate systems as well, so that the data in these different systems can be available in the other systems or be pushed there to save manual entry. And this is still the dream. It's very similar to that utopian picture. People are now looking and want data coming in electronically. Why are we still document based? And so some of the latest innovations are in B2B and about trying to get data coming in electronically that doesn't need manually processing. But it's been a difficult path because you have to try and agree global standards and you know, have mechanisms for you know, completely wide range of companies being able to agree how to share data, and that's taken time, and you know, it's going on now, but it's not really there fully yet. It's kind of a current trend, but that's where we'd like to get to here. So why automate? Especially, I mean, it's interesting. Here in Africa, it's clear that some regards labor is a bit cheaper than in Switzerland or Bermuda, where you know, labor costs are high. It's very obvious that, like, oh, it's really expensive to employ people. So automation seems, you know, obvious in that regard, but they're not the only benefits. If we look at this is an interesting graphic, I think. So this is the Lloyd's historical results from 1950. I mean, 2015, so it's a little bit out of date now. But I thought this was interesting. So the blue is the underwriting results, and the red is the investment results. If you just take time there, look at that. Since when's this? 1962. No underwriting results were positive until, you know, a couple in 94, you know, small here, but really not here. Here now, underwriting results. And I would suggest the reason for that is because computers came in and the data is available and this management information and the models came in to start making informed decisions and improve the underwriting. And so that is why it's blue. And the other interesting feature of this investment income is massive because it's the nature of the economy and the investment climate. And we've obviously had the 2008 credit crunch and various economic problems that as a trend over time has affected the investment climate. And in general, the share of the profits from investments has diminished in recent years. And so these are factors that weigh in to the need to improve underwriting and have that data to improve underwriting. And this is just another one to show that obviously you have to invest your money prudently and cautiously. You can't just go and gamble it on Bitcoin. And so a lot of reinsurers' money is in bonds, treasury bonds, this kind of thing. And we can just see as a trend since 1980, this is the US bond return. The trend is just down long term. So it doesn't return what it used to. And so you have to look for other ways. Investment income's a bit harder to come by, decade on decade than it used to be. Okay. So yeah, the investment climate's a bit harder than it used to be, and interest rates are flat, and it's hard to see. I mean, again, there'll be slight differences, perhaps regional differences in Africa, and some of the growth in Africa is probably going to be greater than in the European markets. And interesting to see how that will play out. So automation brings processing speed and efficiency, and you're less reliant. The one thing about not just the cost of employing staff, they need to be trained and competent. And then the more trained and competent they are, the more you need them, you rely on them. And if they decide to leave or something happens to them, it can be tricky to replace them with someone equally as trained. And that is a risk. Whereas an automated process doesn't go on holiday, never calls in sick, never phones up and says, oh, I've had a better offer from another company, I'm going to move to a different server. It just does its job. And long-term cost reductions, kind of obvious, but also the automated process. So it's not just the cost. That's what I'm trying to point out there. Oh, sorry. It's the better MI, as well. So it's not just the cost. If you can at least show that it's cost neutral, it would still be worth doing because it's improving your ability to mine your own data for insights. The more that people hold the knowledge, it's less usable, and it's more in their heads. And it's harder to replace. If you're capturing it, then you can mine that, and that's an important thing for the future, I believe. So where should you automate? How do you prioritize what to look at? This is just a sort of schematic of just to show how complex is a reinsurance sort of model. Incredibly complex set of processes you can have in a big company. So where do you choose to automate? I believe anywhere where documents give rise to manual data entry. That's very time inefficient, manual data entry, especially if it's replicated in multiple systems. People are keying in similar data to and it's human error and it's just inefficient. Second point there. And anywhere where a process requires a chain of actions, where one data entry into one system automatically flows. So once you've done this, automatically a workflow is triggered. That number of people need to take different actions. This is a good, you have a sort of predictable process you can define by business rules. This is an obvious candidate for automation. Anywhere a legacy system struggles to perform a certain required task. Legacy, I mean, I could allude to SIX here. I believe SIX is a very robust, rich database model. It's very powerful, but the industry moves on and products get more sophisticated. And in time, you find that maybe your system can't cope with new developments. And this can be, a sort of problem, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Accounting and reinsurance is very complex, and there isn't a whole range of new products along that, are tried and tested that can do the whole range of underwriting, accounting, management. So you don't want to throw it out, but you still have problems that don't fit into the system. And this is again where automation or integration with it can really help. But automation for automation's sake, just picking something and going, oh, we have this process, let's automate it. Word of warning, and this is where we as consultants believe, we don't just come in and try and sell the tools or whatever. Don't automate a bad process. First, look at the process. You may be able to improve it and then automate a much improved process, because it's easy just to, go after solutions that aren't the most elegant. And, in a few years' time, you've been just as much of a mess, as before. How do you automate? You need to align with the company's strategic goals. You need the buy-in. It's not easy to affect change, and you need alignment in the organization. The people at the top understand they're driving where they want the company to go. If you're going to exit a line of business in a couple of years, don't invest a lot of money in it. It's not going to fly to try and automate some system if it's not where your company's trying to go. So it has to fit in with your strategic goals. Of the projects that were deemed failures, the primary cause, change in organization's priorities. The primary cause, because it needs commitment from the company from the top and buy-in from the people down below who see the benefit of the change and want to participate. We don't just automate people alone. We don't just do a deal and say, oh, we'll come back when we've automated it. You're all part of the team. We need the buy-in from all the users. You're the experts in what you do and how you work. And it will only work if you're part of our team. We're one team together that work on the solutions. First, look at the process. So we start there before we do anything, or in implementing tools or proposing solutions. We try to understand your business, what you're trying to achieve, what your processes are. Use tools which are low code, configurable and reusable. Don't just buy a separate tool for every process. If you can buy one tool, you can use to automate many processes. It's cheaper, more efficient, less risky, makes sense. Makes my point from earlier. It's critical for any projects that the people who really know, which is you, are part of the team. And testing, you must commit to testing, because it's complex, and everyone has edge cases, and you start off saying, oh, I need something to do this, but you don't realize that some of your users, it doesn't quite work for them. They've got workarounds, and this edge case doesn't do this, and, but we need it to do that. If you don't flesh these things out, you automate something and all the users go, but this doesn't work, because the managers don't realize that the users are using workarounds and this kind of thing. So it's very important that we really understand exactly what your needs are and how you use your systems today. And be agile, because of that problem, you can't always know exactly what you know what the big picture is, but the solution, needs to evolve. The important thing is that it delivers what you really wanted it to do, not what you initially sort of said, oh yeah, this and this. Well, okay, we'll just go and build that, but it doesn't work. Well, that's what you asked us to do. So we're agile, and we understand you wanted to achieve this benefit, and we'll just keep adjusting what we do and how we work until it achieves the benefit, not just build what it is, the wish list of 3 things. If it's not working for you, we don't have a strict plan. We're agile. That's very important. And automation is not just software, it's also infrastructure, and that's something maybe Roman's technical. It's not just the front end, the back end can also be automated. Just a quick look about Agile. I don't know how much you know about the Agile methodology. I'm not going to go deeply into it right now, but I thought this is amazing that still, after many years of IT projects and the billions that have been lost and wasted, still today, only less than a third of projects You know, these are IT projects, modern, you know, outcomes of IT implementation projects. Only a third are successful. 50% challenged. For me, that's kind of more or less failed, because if it doesn't do what you want and you have problems, it's not really successful. So the bigger the project, the less success rate, 2%. So the smaller the project, bite-sized chunks, much higher chance of success. And that's the way we like to work. And it's a way of building a partnership. You know, it's like, don't bite off more than you can chew. Just do something, see that it works, gain confidence, move to the next use case. And this was agile versus waterfall. You can see from the two there that agile is always born out to be more successful than waterfall. Who, this is where I'm coming to the surprise ending. Who should you choose to automate with? Who should your vendor be? People who understand reinsurance. There are software providers coming in off-the-shelf automation products, but they don't know the industry. They don't really understand your data. They just promise that they can connect things, but they don't really understand what your data means and the dependencies and the importance of it. We understand reinsurance, obviously, because we have a background. We came from reinsurance. It was an underwriter. I was sipping my drink. I was a broker, later also on the underwriting side with Hiscox, and we have claims experts, accounting trained people. We understand the business. Even Roman understands something about reinsurance, and he's a coder. And I think that's what makes us unique as well, that we develop our tools. We actually design and specify. Roman has a very talented team of developers in Riga, Latvia. I'm impressed at how much they've learned about reinsurance. You know, as the years go by, they don't come to ask us questions now. They're like, oh yeah, the SUPIs. They say, oh, it's the reinstatement. You're like, wow, okay, they really start to understand now. Track record of delivery makes sense. And we do have a track record, and we're happy to provide multiple references, and people will always tell you what they think of us, and we'll stand by us. And some of our presenters today are here just because they appreciate that we did a good job for them, and they're willing to give their time up to present just as a sort of thank you. Vendors with expertise in change management, project management, business analysis, and development. You need the whole package for a successful implementation. It's not just, oh, there's a snazzy bit of software, we'll just install it. It's the whole package that makes it work. And this is why we have expertise in all the areas required. Agile as well as waterfall, agile where possible. Process before solutions. We're all about understanding the process and what the needs are. Vendors who treat you like a partner, not a customer. As Ed says, never lost a client. The only client we did lose is because they merged, they closed down or were bought by somebody else. A year later, we picked them up as a client, and they're still a client today. So who? Well, actually, here's the sales bit. We believe it should be us, but that's for you to decide. So thank you very much. I'll